The Classic WoW 2026 roadmap just dropped, and honestly, there weren't a ton of surprises there if you've been paying attention to the state of the game. But here's the thing, sometimes what they don't say tells you just as much as what they do, and I think we can read between the lines a bit and figure out where things are headed. So they gave us the future of what will be happening up to the end of Mists of Pandaria and TBC Anniversary, and of course hinted at Classic Plus beyond that. So I wanted to go over the dates on the roadmap, see what we know we're getting, and what likely could be happening in the future beyond that. So we'll begin with Mists of Pandaria Classic. The roadmap, albeit a very short roadmap, contains the 2 remaining phases, and it's pretty straightforward. Phase 4, the escalation patch, will be coming pretty soon this spring. It brings in the Baron's World event, new heroic scenarios, and more of the legendary quest line. There's not going to be a new raid this phase, it's more just setting up the story content for the big finale. And then we've got the final phase, Siege of Orgrimmar in summer, as well as the Timeless Isle as predicted recently. This will be the big one, the final phase of Mists of Pandaria, and I wouldn't expect this much later than June, to be honest, because there really isn't that much content in the patch before it. And that's all we get for Mists of Pandaria. There is no mention of what is happening beyond Siege of Orgrimmar. The roadmap just stops. If Warlords of Draenor seriously was on the cards, this would have been a decent time to at least mention it. But as I've said before, I'm pretty confident the classic progression realms are ending with Mists of Pandaria. The pace and timing of things happening just doesn't support WoD existing in my opinion, and I think it would conflict with other versions of Classic they're going to be announcing at Blizzcon, and they want to overall reduce the number of choices that we have for once. The next big question is, of course, so what happens to these characters at the end of Mists of Pandaria? And I've previously suggested that they be transferred to retail, but now looking at the timeline laid out like this and knowing that Blizzard haven't suggested what's coming next, it kind of changes things. Because if these characters were transferred to retail at the end of MOP, it will be randomly halfway through Midnight, which just doesn't make sense to do that big of a change mid-expansion. If you look at what's happening in retail at the moment, they have the World Soul Saga, which is a trilogy of expansions. We've had the War Within, we're getting Midnight very soon, and the Last Titan after that. The whole saga represents a massive storyline within the WoW universe, and at the end of the Last Titan, we might be looking at a natural springboard for some kind of major change in World of Warcraft. Now, I don't think we're getting WoW 2 or anything like that, not unless Blizzard can absolutely guarantee that players will keep their characters, their collections and so on, because you do absolutely not want to reset people back to day one. That would be a disastrous decision, but it does represent a time when Blizzard could make a big change. So with these Mists of Pandaria Classic characters, they may just linger in some kind of MOP era type thing for a while and then get merged into retail at a later date when it finally makes sense to do so. But long term, looking at the alternatives, which will either be continuing Classic progression realms, I don't think that's going to happen, or just keeping these characters on a MOP era realm, which will be, let's be honest, completely dead very quickly. They pretty much have to go to retail. I think it's only a matter of time, but it could take a while to happen. Next up, let's talk about the TBC Anniversary servers. So Blizzard have unveiled the full remaining roadmap for TBC Anniversary. So phase 2 of the tier 5 content will be coming this spring. Assuming it's about 3 months per phase, this should put this around May or so. Phase 3 with Black Temple and Mount Hydra will be in summer, around July or August. Phase 3.5 brings in Zul'Aman in autumn. This is a bit of a shorter catch-up phase, probably in September or October. And then finally phase 4, the Fury of the Sunwell with Sunwell Plateau, the Isle of Quel'Danas and so on. That will be mid to late autumn. So we're looking at October to early November really. There'll be extra content on top of that per phase, but that's your entire TBC timeline there. And I think there's a few reasons that Blizzard are moving really fast through TBC. First of all is on Anniversary Realms. They said that they were going to do this, that they would have a much faster cadence, although seeing it all laid out now, it may come as a bit of a surprise. The next thing is that by the end of TBC Anniversary, Blizzard are going to have announced Classic Plus at BlizzCon in September this year. That is going to be the next large Classic project, and every single other version of Classic will be completely overshadowed by it. It makes sense to wrap up alternative versions to ensure there isn't any competing Classic versions, and to try and reconsolidate all the Classic players into one main game once again. Another reason is that I think there's still a good chance we'll be getting TBC era servers. The pace now may seem really aggressive, But if these servers continue to exist in the future, then it's fine in the long term, I suppose. If you want to take your time with TBC and play it at your own pace, the error servers would serve this purpose just perfectly. Rather frustratingly though, Blizzard didn't confirm that there will be error servers, though I still think they will end up doing them. Another big question we didn't get answered is what happens with the potential of Wrath of the Lich King anniversary. The timing for Wrath now, looking at the roadmap, is honestly really awkward. If it was definitely happening and following TBC, similar to WoD, this would have been a good time to just announce it and say this will be something happening in the future. So again, if Wrath anniversary follows immediately after TBC wraps up in late 2026, it will be running basically concurrent with Classic Plus if we were to assume that Classic Plus will be towards the end of this year or the start of next year, and that just doesn't make sense. Blizzard basically can't allow that to happen. The way I see it, they have two options here really. They can just say, well, too bad, we're going to do it that way anyway, and you'll have to choose where you want to play, which is not good in my opinion. Or, and I think this is the more likely one, they just release Wrath with all content released from day one, and it's effectively being in an error state straight away, and say, look, it'll be there forever. If you want to play it, go and play it. I think the fast pace of TBC improves the chances of getting TBC error down the line, by the way, but not having a Wrath error to wrap up the trilogy just doesn't feel right. It's hard to say what Blizzard will do here, but I have a feeling they may just release it in an error state and say it'll be there if you want it. There was also another thing Holly Longdale mentioned during the presentation, specifically about the Titan Reforged servers in China. She made a point of mentioning how they created those servers specifically for Chinese players and how that player base enjoys playing the game. So why would Blizzard go out of their way to bring this up in a broadcast for Western audiences? The way I see it is they're essentially saying Titan Reforge is a Chinese server thing. It's not coming over here because the player culture is different, and Western players would make way too much of a fuss over GDKP and microtransactions. So what we have now with Mr. Pandaria and TBC is what we are getting until Classic Plus is announced and eventually released. So if you're ever hoping to maybe see Titan Reforged servers in the West, I think the chance of that happening is now practically zero. And honestly, with Classic, all roads at the moment are leading to Classic Plus as the big game for everyone to go back to. So I really don't think we need more versions of the game, so I'm kind of happy that this is happening, or not happening, depending how you look at it. Which brings us to Classic Plus, and honestly, the Copium tank was in a need of a bit of a refill here, even if you've been a long-term believer like me. So realistically, it was never going to be announced during this roadmap. I don't think anyone truly thought that it would happen. Classic Plus will be the biggest announcement of BlizzCon 2026. You don't drop that announcement mid-year, even if you are trying to do a roadmap and keeping your players engaged and interested. You save this for the main stage in September. Holly did do that I'm about to announce something, oh no, I got cut off by accident type thing. And for me, that's pretty much just a recommitment to hinting at Classic Plus, and that's basically what I expected to get out of the roadmap. They're keeping it in people's minds without actually revealing anything yet, because they essentially can't. Another interesting thing that was very easy to miss during the presentation is that Holly also said, soon you will see us launch surveys in-game so we can get your thoughts and feedback. Now I can think of another MMO out there which does surveys in-game, which has been relatively successful, you could say, called Old School RuneScape. Now what this will actually materialize as being is something which I don't know. It probably won't be as transparent as Old School RuneScape's polling system is, where in that game, if you don't know, they'll lay out updates well in advance, and then have each one as something the community can vote on, and updates have to pass a certain threshold in order to be put in the game. And speaking of surveys, there's one other thing I wanted to mention during this video. There has been a massive community-run survey on Classic Plus features that went live very recently. This was created by some of the same people who got Hardcore WoW and a bunch of other different community events off of the ground. There have been a bunch of community-run surveys, but this feels to me like it should be the big one which everyone gets behind if you are interested in this subject. In fact, in the first 48 hours, they already said they received over 21,000 survey submissions, so a lot of people are already taking interest. But why should you care about this survey if it's community-run and not from Blizzard? First, it's very much in everyone's interest, from players to Blizzard, to have everyone in one main place where they're showing their support and preferences. The more people who participate, the clearer the overall picture becomes of what the Classic community actually wants. If there are tens of thousands of people agreeing on something, and a small number comparatively disagreeing, you're probably onto something which is worth consideration. Of course, that doesn't mean things on this survey will end up in the game, but Blizzard will 100% know about this survey, and they will look at the results. I mean, just think about it. Most companies fight tooth and nail for customer feedback. If you told someone in another industry that customers were organizing their own comprehensive feedback system, they wouldn't even believe you. The survey also has a map feature where you can pin ideas directly onto the actual map of Azeroth. This should be the best community poll we've ever had for Classic Plus, and again, the more people who get involved, the better and more representative it will be. So even if you're a little bit interested in Classic Plus, I would say give it a look and share it about with others who may care too. I know there will of course be people who are instinctively negative about this. There are some people who just react this way to news. People like this said a season of Discovery wouldn't happen, that hardcore WoW wouldn't happen, and that Classic WoW itself wouldn't happen. And here we are 6 years into Classic WoW's return. So if you do care about the future of this game like many of us do, this is your chance to have some input. Blizzard have shown on many different occasions they are willing to listen to community feedback when it's organized and substantial. This is one of those times. I'll link the survey below and you can check it out, though do make sure you've got some time free because it's pretty substantial. So that's the state of Classic in 2026. We've got Mr. Pandaria wrapping up by summer, TBC Anniversary speedrunning through all 5 phases by late autumn, and BlizzCon in September positioned to take center stage and bring all the Classic players and many more back to Azeroth once again. Overall, it's what I expected, though I would have liked some more clarity on exactly what will be happening at the end of Mr. Pandaria and TBC. But again, I think everything's going to be combined together at BlizzCon, and it'll be one road for Classic players in Classic Plus. That's about all from me though. Let me know your thoughts, check out the survey in regards to Classic Plus, and as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening in, and I'll see you all in the next one very soon.